Hey there, super friends. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Monday, May 24th, 2021. How y'all doing? Alright, we only got one episode in last week, but hey, we got an episode in last week, so that's an improvement. I don't know, maybe we should just go for one episode a week. I don't know. But anyway, recording today, so. And there have been updates on Hearthstone Battlegrounds recently, and that's mostly what I'm going to talk about today. So, if that's of no interest to you, you know, I'm going. You feel free to tune out or whatever, but okay, so in the recent update, we got a couple new heroes, and we got a new tribe, Quillboars. And I've gotten a good chance to play with Quillboars in every lobby. So if you're kind of newer to Battlegrounds, I mean, I haven't been here that long either, but when I started playing, Elementals had recently been introduced. Like, they were still in the phase of their life cycle where they were in every single lobby. So this is the first time since I've started playing that I've seen a new tribe introduced, because Elementals were there when I got there. They've introduced new heroes a couple times, so that's not new. But now Quillboars are in every lobby, because that's when they first introduce a new minion type, it's in every single lobby, like it's auto-include, and they tweak it from there. Elementals were, like, kind of busted when they were introduced. A lot of good tribal synergy pieces. Most of the tribal synergy pieces are actually Elementals. Whereas there are other tribes that some of their best synergy pieces aren't minion, like they're generic minions, not minions of that tribe. So they were like insanely good. You get a solid Elementals build, you were winning pretty much. And they ended up nerfing some things. They did improve some things, like Party Elemental used to be like really, really not worth it. And now it's a tier 2 and it's 3/2 stats. And that makes it much more worth it. Because I feel like it was, at one point it was like a 2/2 and it was tier 3. And it has the ability whenever you play a friendly elemental, well, whenever you play an elemental, that would make it a friendly elemental. And you have Party Elemental in your warband, it gives a random elemental you control, I think it's another random, but it can be the one you just played, +1/+1. So, not a huge buff, but in the early stages of the game, pretty good. So, I was expecting Quillboars to be, you know, the it thing. They're okay. They're not terrible. They're fine. So, we now have 8 minion types, which means every lobby, instead of 2 being excluded, there are 3 minion types excluded. Because they didn't remove any of the minion types to make room for the Quillboars, they just added them in. So, if I had to rank the tribes, my tier 1 would be Pirates and Elementals. And this is just based on, like, my playstyle and my experience. If somebody like Slissa tells you that I'm dead wrong, she's probably right. She spends many, many more hours playing this game and is a much higher ranked player than I am. You know, same deal like when I talk about Magic and talk about, oh yeah, I like this card, or I think this deck's good, or whatever. If, you know, a professional Magic player contradicts what I say, you should probably listen to them. they probably know more of what they're talking about. But yeah, Pirates and Elementals, definitely tier 1, and I favor Pirates over Elementals. Elementals can be a little mopey in the early tiers, which if your tribe's going to be mopey early or late, you want it mopey in the early tiers, not the later tiers, because you're going to take less damage. So, the way damage calculation works, after you have your battle with your opponent, oh my god, if you end up in a state where both, like, your final minions trade with each other and therefore nobody has minions left, it's a tie and no damage is dealt. If once one player has no more minions, if the other player still has minions, they are declared the winner. And the way damage is calculated is, hold on, I gotta pause y'all real quick. Hopefully I remember where I was when I come back. Okay, so when there is a winner, the way damage is calculated is it's the winning player's tavern tier plus the tavern tiers of the minions they have left. So if, you know, you lose the first match, like, you know, you get a tier 1 2/2, they get the Murloc that's, you know, tier 1, they're tier 1, they get a 2/1, and it brings along a 1/1 token, and tokens count as tier 1. So their 2/1 and your 2/2 trade, they're left with the token, they deal 2 damage, 1 for their tavern tier, 1 for the token's tavern tier. So if they're like tier 5 and they have a tier 3 and a tier 4 minion left at the end of combat, that's 5 for their tavern tier plus 3 for the one minion's tavern tier, puts you at 8, plus 4 for the second minion's tavern tier, puts you at 12 damage into you. So again, it's better to lose battles early in the game than later in the game. I gotta pause y'all again. Man, they are fast today. So, yeah. Better to lose earlier, where you're taking smaller packets of damage than when you start losing later rounds. Like, I have been in the top 4, gone into a combat with, like, you know, 25 life. I'm only down 15. I should be okay even if I lose, and it's just, no, their stuff just way outclasses mine. It's all high tavern tier, and they do like 30 damage to me. I've been there. It sucks. So, Elementals can be a little mopey in the early tiers. They have the 1/3 1-drop refreshing anomaly, and when it enters, your next refresh costs 0. The only time I, like, care about getting those at all is if I'm playing Millhouse. Because it costs me 2 gold and saves me 2 gold, so it's kind of a net cost of 0. Whereas because with Millhouse, minions only cost 2 gold instead of 3, but it also costs 2 gold to refresh your tavern tier instead of 1. Well, like with every other hero, it's buying a 1/3 for 3 gold to save 1 gold for a free refresh. And, you know, yeah, there's sometimes where it's good, like if you're in Elementals going into, I think it's turn 3 when you have 6 gold. You can buy that elemental, and if there's not another elemental in the offering there, you get the free refresh to try for a second one, still be able to afford a second minion. There are scenarios where it's like, okay, yeah, this is a fine buy, but refreshing anomaly is always fine or worse if you're not playing Millhouse. If you are playing Millhouse, it's decent or worse. I mean, and don't get me wrong, none of the lower tier minions are, like, really what you want to be seeing when you're, you know, at Tavern Tier 6. You'll still get them in your mixes, but you're not excited about, like, any of them. Just, I don't know, the 1-3s, I don't like them as much. Whereas, like, pirates seem to be really decent at every step of the way. Like, they have a lot of good synergy together. Yeah, I like pirates, personally. I tend to do the best with good pirate builds. But yeah, those are my tier 1. And then for tier 2, like, the top of my tier 2 would be Murlocs. So, with Murlocs, yeah, there are, you know, there's a Murloc Lord, and then there's other Murlocs that ETB and buff stats of the rest of your Murlocs. So, you know, that's good, but they tend to not get super big. But they make up for that by, at tier 4, you can get Toxfin, and when it ATBs, you give another minion, another Murloc you control poison, which, if you're a crossover from Magic, is basically Death Touch. And, yeah, poison's great. If you have the hero George the Fallen, Murlocs are a pretty good bet. Because, again, they're a little mopey in the earlier levels. But they're fine. You're probably more likely to tie combats than win them, but that's still lessening the damage you're taking, so, you know, that's fine. But yeah, if you can poison out your whole board and give them all Divine Shield, you're 2-for-1ing all of your opponent's minions except minions they have with Divine Shield. So, yeah, that's pretty good. However, the reverse side of that, if you're trying to play Murlocs and there's somebody else with George the Fallen as the hero, you're gonna have a rough time. Because it's really kind of a feat to get them to the point where they can outclass other minions on stats rather than Death Touch. And then mechs, demons, and Quillboars are, like, all ranked together in, like, what I would put as my tier 3 minions. There's some good synergies, but, like, they're pretty bad. Well, not pretty bad. They're pretty meh. Unless you get, like, the important synergy pieces. And there's only a couple of them. So, they're just, like, and with demons, 2 of the 3, like, best synergy pieces aren't even demons. They're generic minions. You got Wrathweaver that, now it's a tier 1, starts as a 1-3, but every time a demon enters the battlefield under your control, you take 1 damage and your Wrathweaver gets +1/+1. So you're damaging yourself in the process, which, personally, I don't love. I tend to not favor Wrathweavers, but you can get them pretty big. And, like, you can get, you know, a big-ass Wrathweaver and then move off of demons when you're done dealing yourself damage, and you still have this giant minion that needs to be dealt with. You got Soul Jugglers, which are great. Every time a demon you control dies, it deals 3 damage to an opposing minion, randomly. And when you triple it, instead of dealing 6 damage, it deals 3 damage twice, which in my opinion is much better. Because you reduce the risk of it targeting a minion with like 1 health left and dealing all 6 damage there, and you get this overkill that, you know, doesn't benefit you at all. Whereas when you're spreading out the damage, you're more likely to glib at least one of the 2 minions, and, you know, it makes it more possible, I guess, for your remaining minions to trade off with opposing minions. And then the other one is tier 4. There's a demon that every time you summon a demon gets +1/+1. But that one's much better than the Wrathweaver, not just because it doesn't deal you damage, but it's minions you play from your hand, and it's also demons you summon during combat. And demons have a lot of decent, like, pop-apart minions that when they die, they leave behind demon tokens, or there's, is it Imp Boss? His like, sound effect when you play him out is, stop yelling! I love him, just because of that. But it's like a 2/4, I think it's Tavern Tier 3, maybe. But every time it takes damage, you get a 1/1 demon token. So, good with Soul Jugglers, because these 1/1s die, and that 1/1 now represents 4 damage so long as your Soul Juggler's alive. Or 7 damage if you have a Golden Soul Juggler. And then you have this demon that just gets bigger every time a new demon enters, even these tokens. So, yeah, they're very decent. Mechs, now mechs, at least, most of their good pieces are actually mechs. There is one tier 6 minion that when it dies, it basically brings in new copies of the first 2 mechs of yours that died in that combat. Now, they're plain copies as if you had just bought them from the tavern, so any buffs or anything on the version you had in your warband, you're not getting that, but still, you know, it's more minions to chop down your opponent's horses. And then there's the one minion, starts out as like a 3/2 with Divine Shield, and every time you summon a mech during combat, it gets Divine Shield and like +1 attack. So its butt doesn't get bigger, which kind of sucks, but it gets a new Divine Shield, so that's fine. And then there's another mech, I want to say it's tier 5, that gets like +1/+1 every time a mech dies on your watch. So they do have good synergy. You go ahead too. I think you two should probably stay together. But, like, they're just not great without those pieces. So you can end up in a position where you're taking a lot of damage while you're looking for those pieces. I mean, if I'm going to end up in demons, which, you know, sometimes it happens, because there is a limit to each kind of minion in the tavern. So, you know, the better minions like elementals and pirates, you'll end up fighting over them. And then you just have like 3 people that have kind of mediocre pirate and elemental boards, but like these other minion types are wide open. So I have, you know, been in the scenario where, like, whatever minion type I started getting into at the beginning is, like, drying up, it's just not working out, and a Soul Juggler comes across, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy a Soul Juggler and, you know, start pivoting into demons. But, like, I don't want to be in demons unless I have a Soul Juggler. So, and Quillboars, yeah, they're only okay. Like, so their big mechanic is the blood gems, which are basically bananas. They give, you can play them to give one of your minions +1/+1, which in and of itself is kind of mopey. But there are Quillboars that have synergies with like they get extra benefits from the blood gems. There's also a taunt minion that when you play a blood gem on another Quillboar you control, it gets +1/+1. So there are some nice synergies with that. And, you know, I've gotten wrecked by really good Quillboard boards. But it seems like they're a lot less forgiving than elementals were when they first showed up. That, like, you really have to get all the best pieces, or again, you just have a kind of mopey board. And then my tier 4 would be Dragons and Beasts. Dragons and Beasts are both very good in the early game, but they don't scale well. Like, their late game is, you know, you have to get the dragon-centric tier 6 minions. Beasts, your end game there, like, the way you win with Beasts is you get Macaw, Goldrin, Baron combo. And if you can get Macaw and Goldrin, the Baron's not always necessary, but and if you can triple the Macaw or you can triple the Goldrin, it's great. So the Macaw, I want to say it's tier 3, it's like a 4/3. Every time it attacks, it triggers a random death rattle from your minions. So you want to be in the position where the only death rattle you have is Goldrin. Goldrin is tier 6 beast, and his death rattle is give all your beasts +5/+5. So, you know, with the Macaw, you put it at the front of your warband so it attacks first, and your beasts get +5/+5. If you triple the Macaw, it triggers twice, so they get +10/+10. If you triple the Goldrin, instead of +5/+5, you get +10/+10. And if you have the Baron, I always want to say it's Baron Sengir, and it's not. That's a magic card. It's Baron something. It's like a tier 5 minion, 1/7 stats, but it doubles death rattles. So with the Macaw, if you have a golden Macaw, like you triple it, it triggers death rattle twice, and Baron will double both of those. So one attack from your Macaw gives all your beasts +20/+20. You get 4 triggers of Goldrins. So yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. But that is like the exact combo you need to win. And then if you get Cave Hydras, that's the Cleave Beast. So Cleave, I guess, is a Hearthstone card. I don't know, people say Cleave and I go straight to Embercleave from Magic, and I don't understand how this translates to this ability. So I had to have somebody explain it to me. Apparently there's a Hearthstone card called Cleave. And what it does, presumably, I mean, I'm just going off of context clues here. When that minion attacks, like Cave Hydra, and there is a mech at tier 6 that does it, but I don't remember the name of that one. It deals its combat damage to the minion it's attacking, and like it has an actual combat with that minion, but it also deals its combat damage to the minions on either side of that minion. So you can get a 3-for-1 off of a Cave Hydra or this mech if you beef them up. Cave Hydra it's tier 3 or 4, and man, I depend way too much on Bob's Tavern Helper. if you're going to play Battlegrounds, highly recommend you download Hearthstone Deck Tracker, because one of the pieces of it is called Bob's Tavern Helper, and it comes in the same package. And as long as you have that running when you fire the Hearthstone client, when you have hero selection, a little link appears in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You can click it, and it'll take you to, I don't even know what the website is. I don't think it's in like an official Blizzard thing, but it'll give you what tier the heroes you have to pick from are ranked, and show you like their average placement, you know, when players play them. So you can pick like the best hero. You can have it show, it's like it runs the numbers when you go into combat and gives you a percentage, like what percent you are to win, what percent you are to tie, what percent you are to lose, and what the average damage you would do if you won, or the average damage your opponent will do if you lose during the combat. You can hover over the other hero placards down the left-hand side of the screen, and it will show you the last warband, the warband they had when you last fought them, and tell you how many turns ago that was. And the big thing is, in the upper right-hand corner, there's, like, you'll see placards for the 6 tavern tiers, and if you click them, a drop-down opens, and it shows you what minions are in that tier in this lobby. So it won't include, like, the tribes that have been excluded from the lobby. And it breaks them down by minion type. And there's another category for, you know, generic minions. But it'll also put generic minions that are, like, related to a minion type in with that type. Like, it'll put soul jugglers in with demons, because it's demon-centric. It'll put I think her name's Adina, the tier 6 minion that when she dies, she gives all your dragons Divine Shield. It'll put her in with the dragons, even though she's not a dragon. So it's great. It's really helpful. Anyway. So, God, what was the talking? Oh yeah, the Cleave minion, the Cave Hydra. It's either tier 3 or 4, and stats are 2-4, which for that tavern tier, it's not great. But because it's a cleave, like, you're actually dealing 6 damage when you attack. And you want to beef them up as much as you can, because, you know, then you're more likely to 3-for-1, or even 3-for-0, where you sklib 3 of your opponent's minions and your Cave Hydra lives to do it again. So when you know, if you can get that with the Macaw, Goldrin, Baron combo, great. But even without, you know, that kind of ability, you're still, like, your beasts are scaling up so incredibly fast. The problem is, beasts have a lot of death rattles. And most of those death rattles are dropping a token. Which, once you have a full 7 in your warband, the death rattle that spawns a token is useless to you for your Macaw to trigger it, because it'll try to spawn it, and it's on the attack. So even if your Macaw dies in combat, when it tries to spawn it, there's no room for it, so you don't get anything. So not only do you have to, you know, get a Goldrin, and before you get to the point where you can get a tier 6 minion, you can sub in the spawn of, like, Nazaroth or something like that. It's a tier 2 minion, 2/2. Death rattle is give all your minions +1/+1. So you can use that as, like, the light Goldrin before you're at the point where you can get a tier 6 minion. Or you can use is it Disposable Hero? I feel like it's Disposable Hero. It's another, I'm pretty sure she's tier 2. She used to be tier 1. 2/1, when she dies, give a minion you control Divine Shield. So you can sub in these other death rattles until you get to the point where you can try to get a Goldrin. But you don't want the pop-apart death rattles when you have a full board, and you want your macaw to attack before it's killed by being attacked into, so you want to try to get it attacking first, and you want something that you will actually benefit from. So not only do you have to try to find a good death rattle to put on your board, it excludes you from so many beasts to not have this wasted ability from the macaw. Because there's, let's see here, you have the Kindly Grandmother, which drops a Wicked Wolf when she dies. You have like the Mange Wolf or whatever. It's like a 3/3 that drops to 1/1 minion, 1/1 beast when it dies. You've got the Rat Pack one that when it dies, it drops 1/1s equal to its power. The Savannah Lion that drops spiders or hyenas or some shit. So there's so many beasts that their death rattle is to spawn more minions, that once you're like getting to the Goldrin combo or whatever you're using before you get to Goldrin, you can't really put them in your warband, because when the macaw attacks, it's one of your death rattles randomly, and you don't want these other shit death rattles getting in the way of the death rattle you want it to trigger. And dragons, yeah, you pretty much have to get Kaligos and the Divine Shield Lady. Kaligos is the tier 6 dragon. Every time you play an ETB minion, it gives all your dragons +1/+1. But it doesn't have to be a dragon to trigger it. So, you know, every turn you're just cycling through whatever ETB minions come up. It's like, oh, there's that Murloc, there's the Toxfin. I don't even have any other Murlocs to put the poison on, but still I'm gonna take that one. Oh, there's the Murloc that when it enters, if I control another Murloc, I get to discover another Murloc. And again, the ETB's wasted on you, like you have nothing you can use it on, but it doesn't matter, because you're just using them to churn through and trigger Kaligos as much as you can. And then there is a tier, I want to say it's tier 4, that every turn right before you go to combat, it gets +1/+1 for each dragon you control, and it counts itself. So if you have a full 7 dragons, it's getting +7/+7 every turn. You know, so those are all decent pieces of dragons, but they tend to not do well in the top end unless you get like perfect pulls. So yeah, Quillboars are just okay. They're not the lowest tier in my opinion, but they're definitely not like where Elementals were when Elementals were introduced. So I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed. I was excited. I'm like, oh, we're gonna get this new minion type, and I'm gonna, you know, get to experience that. And I'm like, oh wow, y'all aren't great. And then as far as new heroes, I'm coming up on, I gotta get back to the house so I can get Bird up and started on school, and I can get logged in for work. So I'm not gonna have time to go over them today. I will try to get a second episode in this week and talk about them. The Quillboard Hero, I thought maybe they'd be better if you got the Quillboard Hero, but no. Like, the hero power is when you upgrade your Tavern Deer, get 2 blood gems. Well, I mean, that's fine, I guess, but it would almost be better, I think, if it was an activated ability, pay 2 gold, get a blood gem. Or something along those lines. It's just, like, I just don't think it's helpful enough. Maybe if it was get blood gems equal to the tier you're upgrading to, or something along those lines. or even, like, equal to your current tavern tier. I don't know, but, like, 2 blood gems every time you upgrade it, it's just not enough. It's kind of like not having a hero power. But there are 2 other ones that got introduced, and the one I think could be really good if you use it right. I got to use them, and I don't think I did it right because it took me a little bit to realize, like, the full scope of the power. So, and yeah, I'll try to go over, like, my favorite heroes. Spoiler, my absolute favorite hero is Patches the Pirate. That one's great. So, that's all I've got time for today. I hope you found it in some way helpful or educational. But anyway, as always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening. And again, I really hope to talk to y'all again this week and talk a little more about, you know, this most recent update to Battlegrounds, and maybe even if I have time, a couple of the heroes that have been added in since I've been playing, but not, like, in this most recent patch.